Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Salam sejahtera bagi kita semua, Om Swastiastu, Namo Buddhaya, Salam Kebajikan, Rahayu. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I would like to welcome all of you to the second day of PYC International Energy Conference 2023, organized by Purnomo Yusgiantoro Center, PYC, in collaboration with the Energy Cooperation Coordinator under ASEAN 2023 Chairmanship Secretariat, Ministry of Energy and Mineral Resources, Center for Policy Development, CPD, Climate Work Center, International Institute for Sustainable Development, IISD, Indonesia Research Institute for Decarbonization, IRID, and the Institute for Essential Service Reform, IESR. First of all, I would like to introduce myself. My name is Vivi Fitrianti. I am a researcher from PYC, and I will be your master of ceremony for today's sessions. Welcome to the Human Capital Sessions, Preparing Human Capital for Energy Transitions of the PYC International Energy Conference 2023. Thank you for attending PYC International Energy Conference 2023. It is a great pleasure for us to have you in this very super exciting moment. Now, please allow me to greet all the honorable speakers for this morning event. Mr. Eric Roeder, a technical specialist on green jobs, climate actions, and resilience through just transition in the Asia-Pacific region from the International Labour Organization, ILO. Good morning, Eric. Dr. Anindito Aditomo, he will be joining us. Dr. Anindito Aditomo, Head of Education Standards, Curriculum and Assessment Agency from the Ministry of Education, Culture, Research and Technology of the Republic of Indonesia. Good morning, Pak Anindito. And Mr. Roberto Rossi, the Cluster President of Indonesia and Timor Leste from Schneider Electric. Good morning, Roberto. And lastly, we have Professor Djoko Santoso, Professor from Institut Teknologi Bandung. Good morning, Pak Djoko. And last but not least, I would like to greet today's moderator, Dr. Filda Citra Yusgiantoro. Moving on, I would like to read Dr. Filda Yusgiantoro curriculum vitae. Ibu Filda is the chairperson of the Purnomo Yusgiantoro Center. She received her Doctor of Philosophy degree at the Faculty of Business and Economics, Monash University, Australia. Additionally, she is an economic lecturer for undergraduate and graduate programs at the Prasetya Mulia University. She is also an advisory board member of the Faculty of Industrial Engineering and Faculty of Mining and Petroleum Engineering Institut Teknologi Bandung, and an alumni group mentor for Monash University. She also received the Best Academic Achievement in Lemhanas RI in 2023. Ibu Filda also has been involved in coordinating research related to energy economics and environmental energy, and her opinions and reports subject to energy-related issues such as carbon pricing, green financing, new and renewable energy development can be found in several international media. She also has many experience as an invited speaker at national and international energy economic conference. So distinguished ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Ibu Filda.
Thank you, Ms. Vivi Fitrianti, for the introduction. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Salam sejahtera bagi kita semua. Salam, Om Swastiastu, Namo Buddhaya, dan salam sejahtera. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Human Capital session, Preparing Human Capital for Energy Transition of the PYC International Energy Conference 2023. Please allow me to introduce myself again. My name is Filda Citra Yusgiantoro, and I'm honored to be your moderator in this session. Now, our session today aims to explore the role of human capital and workplace development in making the energy transition successful. This discussion will zoom out the readiness of human capital in Asian, but zooming in Indonesia itself. Human capital and workplace development are vital to make the energy transition successful. In the report of the World Bank in 2020, the report is called the Human Capital Index 2020 Update. In the report, the Human Capital Index value for Indonesian human resource is 0.54, but went up, that is in 2020, and went up from 0.53 in 2018. So there is an increase of only 0.01 in the Indonesian Human Resource Index. So, but the human resources are urgently needed to support the energy transition. Currently, the government of Indonesia is focusing on transforming education towards a democratic education, shifting Indonesia to be more adaptive concept of democratic education. This more adaptive education is expected to be able to respond to the changing times and industries that are very fast, which is also in terms of the energy transition. So today, we have our distinguished speakers that will share their insights on this matter. For our particular conference this year, again, we'll produce a policy brief. So the policy briefs could be essential for creating an inclusive energy transition roadmap. Therefore, we hope that your active participation and discussion will certainly be valuable for us in this matter. Before we proceed to our discussion, allow me to introduce our distinguished panel of experts who will bring a wealth of knowledge and experience to this discussion. So please join me in welcoming our first speaker is Mr. Roberto Rossi, the Cluster President of Indonesia and Timor Leste from Schneider Electric. Hello. Mr. Roberto Rossi has more than 30 years of experience working in the energy sector. Roberto was appointed as Cluster President for Schneider Electric Indonesia and Timor Leste in February 2021. He contributes to energy transition and acceleration of digital transformation in Indonesia by collaborating with stakeholders, building people's competencies, sharing best practices, and bringing international experts for knowledge transfer to the local community. He started his career at Schneider Electric in 2009 and held multiple leadership positions across the globe. He graduated with a Master of Business Administration from Pontificia Universidad Católica Argentina, Santa Maria de los Buenos Aires. In Spanish, yeah, in Spanish, in Spain, yeah. Okay, so the second one, our second speaker is Professor Djoko Santoso, professor from Institut Teknologi, Bandung. Please join us. Hello, Professor. Professor Djoko Santoso was educated in Indonesia, Thailand, and Japan in geological and geophysical engineering. He serves as a professor in exploration geophysics and head of Center for CO2 and flare gas utilization at ITB, and also advisor to National Center of Excellence for CCS, CCUS, and ZRF. Currently, he is serving as a vice chairman of ITB Board of Trustee. He was the rector of ITB 2005 until 2010 and University of Indonesia 2012 until 2013. He was also the Director General of Higher Education from the Ministry of Education and Culture from 2010 until 2014. He has various experience as a private consultant to some national and international oil and gas companies and engineering firms. He's also a member of some professional international and national organizations such as SEG US, HAJE, IAJI, and PIA. And the third speaker we would like to welcome Mr. Eric Roeder. Please join us, a technical specialist on green jobs, climate actions, and resilience through just transition in the Asia-Pacific region from the International Labor Organization. Thank you, Mr. Eric. Mr. Eric Roeder currently thrives as the International Labor Organization's technical specialist focusing on green jobs and just energy transitions in Asian countries. He boasts 2 decades of services to the United Nations, specializing in diverse sustainability projects. Notable contributions encompass mitigating dust storms with UNCCD, promoting energy efficiency via UNEP, fostering smart agriculture with UNESCAP, and enhancing rural infrastructure in Laos through ILO. Eric's private sector involvement champions inclusive and self-sustaining growth, exemplified by his initiative linking companies with tsunami monitoring infrastructure. At UNESCO Network Coordinator, he propelled public-private partnership for resilient infrastructure aligned with SDGs and Paris Agreement. He spearheaded efforts revitalizing the South Aral Sea Basin, culminating in a 2023 UN resolution. The last speaker, we would like to welcome Mr. Anindito Aditomo, the head of Education Standards Curriculum and Assessment Agency from the Ministry of Education, Culture, Research, and Technology of the Republic of Indonesia. It's okay, Pat, take your time. He just arrived to Jakarta from Surabaya. So welcome, Mr. Anindito. Mr. Anindito Aditomo holds the Doctor of Philosophy and Master of Philosophy in Education from University of Sydney, Australia, and earned a Bachelor of Psychology from Universitas Gadjah Mada. Currently, Mr. Anindito holds leadership positions in the education sector in Indonesia, serving as the head of the Agency of Standardization, Curriculum, and Assessment in Education, Ministry of Education, Culture, Research, and Technology, Government of Indonesia. In the Ministry of Education, he oversees the formulation of national policies on curriculum and assessment, which underpin the current Merdeka Belajar reform. So we are very pleased and honored to have all of you. Thank you for joining us today. Before we start, I will address some guidance for today's discussion. Each presenter will have 15 minutes to deliver the presentation. It will follow by a Q&A session after all panelists have completed their presentation. And in the Q&A session, we encourage the participants to engage in the discussion with the speakers. Now, without further ado, let's proceed to our discussion today. I would like to welcome our first speaker, Mr. Eric Roeder. Now, Mr. Eric Roeder, we want to know the current quality of human resource, and also we want to know maybe some examples of countries with an energy transition roadmap in preparing the human resource. So, Mr. Roeder, please kindly deliver your presentation for about 15 minutes.
Okay, thank you so
much.
much.
The stage is yours.
Okay, let me, because I have bad eyesight, I don't know if I can see that screen very well, so. Oh, okay, sure. Let me put my glasses on. Okay. All right, thank you, and good morning to everyone, and I'm very honored to be here and very thankful to the organizer for putting together a very good conference here in Jakarta. So I had a very nice introduction, so I will jump immediately into my slides. I will try to keep it within 15 minutes. Okay, but I thought, give a little bit of a background first about why the ILO is in this area, talking about green jobs and just transition. So, and why climate is so important to the ILO. So back in 2019, the Secretary General of the United Nations started the Climate Action for Jobs Initiative, So the implementation of this initiative is spearheaded by the ILO taking the lead, and we have our social partners that include the ITUC, which is the International Trade Union Confederation, and the International Organization for Employers, and so forth. And this initiative provides a roadmap for how to ensure that people's jobs and well-being are at the center of a transition to a carbon neutral and climate resilient economy. And I put climate in here because as we see now globally, things are changing very rapidly. I mean, we know what we just saw in Libya, for example, with the intense floods in a very dry and arid region. We're seeing fires in places like the Arctic Circle. So we're in a very serious time period on this planet. Okay, so just what is a green job? And some of you might recognize the photo that is in North Sulawesi. That's a Bunaken National Park, National Marine Reserve. So a green job is a decent job. It contributes to preserving and restoring the environment, be it in traditional sectors such as manufacturing, construction, or new emerging sectors such as renewable energy, and also the long-standing idea of promoting energy efficiency, because energy efficiency is a way for not just governments, but the private sector to be more cost-effective. But I also wanted to add a little bit more about that. The prior definition is the ILO official definition. This is some of the add-ons and components of a green job. So everyone seems to think that a green job may be something that's already in a green industry, but not really. A green job could be moving from one, say, a very polluting sector such as coal-fired power plants and moving towards renewable energy such as solar. But it also has to be decent. So before I go into that, also it could be a process. So the ILO does a lot in the garment industry. So when we talk about dyeing fabric, dyeing textiles, there's a lot of bad chemicals that are involved in this process. So there's a way to move away from that now using, and we have an expert right next to me who knows a lot about carbon capture and utilization. And you can use CO2 to dye clothes. So that's moving away from a dirtier process to a cleaner process, and then having the co-benefit of better occupational safety and health because you're not being exposed to these chemicals and so forth. But then when a green job also needs to be a decent job, and why is that so important is because you need to have social protections in place. So you might be working in a coal mine and so forth, but in the coal mine, you might actually have all the social protections already from your job, but if you were to move to, like, say, the renewable energy sector, it may be informal, or it may not have access to social protections. So as we transition, we have to make sure that the jobs that are being created in different sectors, not just in renewables, because those are intermittent energy sources, but they have to be ensured that the social protections are in place. Okay, so the other issue, and this is the global hot topic at the moment, is just transition. I mean, it's going to be the topic this year at the APEC Senior Leaders Meeting in San Francisco. It's the topic around the region, and it's a topic here in Indonesia on the just energy transition. So what is a just transition? So it's two parts. It's a process and a goal to undertake climate change actions that equally advance job creation and social justice, fair transitions for workers and enterprises. So why is this so important? Because we don't want to leave anyone behind. So a good example would be coming from another country in Asia Pacific, but I won't name it. The government had decided to move away from input-intensive agriculture, industrial agriculture, which uses a lot of petrochemical-based inputs, herbicides, pesticides, and they thought that it would be a good idea to move towards organic agriculture. But the problem was that when the government decided to do this, they didn't talk to the farmers. It's just a loose battery. it's okay. Let's see. Okay. Thank you. Okay, so what happened was when they did the switch and they didn't talk to the farmers, the whole agricultural system in the country collapsed because the farmers were set up to do industrial agricultural practice. They're being subsidized. They're having their seeds subsidized by the government, their inputs subsidized by the government, and then the government just simply switched. So when you have a just transition, it needs to be tripartite. And it's not just because the ILO is telling you it should be tripartite. You need to have the voice of the employers, the workers, and the government sitting down together to make sure that when you transition to a low carbon alternative, that all the voices are heard. So this is a planning for a positive impact on the labor market. So environmental quality and resilience improve, jobs and income gains can increase, and the economies can generate lower emissions and environmental impacts, and there should be less negative social impacts are minimized. That's the whole idea behind a just transition. So, and there's also guidelines. Actually, the ILO has 9 guidelines, but I will just touch on 3 here. And, the aim is to provide policy, framework, and practical tool to help countries at all levels to develop and manage the transition to low-carbon economies. A non-binding practical tool that could be contextualized based on a country-specific mix of macroeconomic, industrial, sectoral, and labor policies, and then emphasizing the importance of social dialogue at every stage, which I just pointed out in the previous slide. So now I bring together green jobs and just transition. Why are they important? Because as we are all very much aware of what's happening in the region, the weather patterns have become much more erratic. So this is going to impact across sectors. And you can see on I believe it's on your left, would be the challenges. And you see the little icons, there's agriculture. So agriculture is going to be heavily impacted by climate change because, for example, in growing rice, if you plant the wrong kind of rice and the season decides it's going to be a very dry season, then the rice could wither. But it could also, different types of rice can also die simply by being submerged in water too long. But there are varieties out there that are more resilient to the changes that we're going to face. And of course, land use as well. And this is so important because even having a hydropower dam, you need to ensure that the watershed is behind it. And you don't want to cut down the trees behind your hydropower dam because all the silt and will go into the turbines and clog the generation of electricity, and we're seeing this in places like Lao PDR. Fisheries are also important and very important for Indonesia, not only to protect your fisheries, but to realize the changes that are coming from acidification of the seas, overfishing, and so forth. And so there are opportunities. There will be new jobs, creative, and a lot of this will be in the area of circularity, and I'll touch on that later. Okay, so this is just some comparison or research that we did for ASEAN member countries, and it just shows my eyes have to really squint to see it, but I believe Indonesia is the third from the left, and it just shows the different policy areas where the country is doing well, where it's lagging behind, and so forth. So, and this is in terms of policy readiness for green jobs, mainly in the area in terms of labor supply. So this is key importance to know as we move towards a more carbon neutral economy. And then we have done a lot of work on energy transition. And we have a publication now, and the publication focused on Vietnam, because Vietnam is also part of the JETP along with Indonesia. So I believe Indonesia is a little bit further along. So Indonesia really is the pathfinder country here. So, but this publication would be of great use also here because it lays out the impact of coal phase out on jobs. It lays out the need to mitigate the negative socio-economic impacts of coal phase out and necessity for just transition policies to be fostered by using evidence at local levels. So to build on this work, pilot demonstration, expanding the energy mix is is the pathway that Vietnam is wants to take as it moves away from coal. Because noting right now, for cement companies, for urea factories, and so forth, 60% of their cost is now in energy, and it's all linked to the cost of coal. So they understand the need to transition away from coal simply because of the costs. So why also transition away from coal is because it's environmental preservation. Coal mining and its combustion have significant environmental impacts. I don't think I need to really touch on that. I think everyone's really much aware. You can see the haze in the sky in many of the large cities in the region. A lot of it's from coal-fired electricity. So this is part of the issue too when we're talking about the EV sector. I mean, electric vehicles are still generating, the batteries are being charged through coal-fired electricity. So I wanted to talk briefly. I see there's this little red thing here. It's telling me I have 3 minutes, so I'll try to be quick. So projected employment trends in correlation with climate change and energy transition. So in Indonesia, like many countries, it's recognizing the importance of mitigating climate change and transitioning to a cleaner energy mix. So this is likely to drive employment trends in several areas. And obviously one is renewable energy. And then I touched on it earlier, and then looking at solar and wind farms, but also geothermal and other types of energy. It's not going to happen overnight because when we talk about solar and we talk about wind, it's a very, very tiny amount of energy that is produced. So you really need a strong energy mix. It's not like you can move away from coal overnight if you have an economy that is growing. So another area that's very important is energy efficiency. Okay, we always think we have all these beautiful high-rise buildings here, glass towers, same in Bangkok. The problem is these buildings are very energy inefficient. So we need to move back to thinking about our architecture in ways like the old shop houses like you see in Malacca, in Malaysia, and so forth. So. And then climate adaptation. We do need to adapt. So, because we're not going to mitigate climate change at this stage. We're already, from the latest report I read, we've already crossed at least six tipping points. So you know, including sea level rise here. And I can tell you, your neighboring country of Singapore, their port, the Maritime and Port Authority of Singapore, they had raised their entire port by 1.5 meters, so they know it's coming, they see it, the sustainable agriculture and so forth is very important. And then factors shaping employment trends in the energy sector is obviously government policy, and then investment in foreign domestic investments in the energy sector, particularly in renewables, can drive job growth, technological advances. And we're seeing that now as battery storage improves in the solar energy sector, turbines, these types of things, international commitments, Indonesia's commitment on the international climate agreements, the Paris Agreement, education and training, upskilling through education and training and so forth to equip the workforce necessary to have the skills, and then market demand. And then also, this very difficult slide, but I put it in here because Germany actually does have a very good transition roadmap, even though they're actually not doing a very good job on transitioning away from coal. They're actually increasing their coal consumption in that country for the next 7 years, but they're telling other people in other countries in the Asia-Pacific region to lower their consumption. But here, I think these will be presented, will be printed out for participants, so I won't go through it. And then the Asia examples of energy transition. So Japan, ROK, Thailand, Vietnam, Indonesia, all have very excellent examples. And as you can see here, 3 of the countries are ASEAN countries. So the very important to see the types of commitment that are coming into renewable energy, implementation of policies to support the expansion of renewable energy, and you'll see it here in Indonesia, even in rural areas like North Sulawesi. They have a very large solar farm there that's providing electricity to the local communities there. And now I see that it's red, and I will stop there. Thank you so much, and I'll pass the mic back to you.
Thank you, Mr. Eric, for your insightful presentation, in which you have elaborated on some key takeaways that I noted down here. That green jobs has actually provide lots of opportunities, about 100 million new jobs by 2030 actually, and also about mitigating climate change, and then also transition to clean energy actually drives employment. However, we need to see that in Asian member countries, the readiness level is variously. So this is need to have a intensive collaboration between Asian member countries, and also we cannot see only that the green job is only moving from fossil fuel sector to the renewable energy sector, but we need to see other sectors such as that Eric has mentioned about the industry from petrochemical and also garment industry and so on. And also the important thing is that social protection also needs to take in place for this energy transition. Thank you, Eric. So we would like to move on to the second speaker, Mr. Roberto Rossi from Schneider Electric Indonesia. So Mr. Rossi, please share us maybe about the future outlook of human capital, actually the workers that need to keep pace with the technological developments, and so on. So Mr. Rossi, please kindly deliver your presentation about 15 minutes. So the stage is yours.
Hello, yes. So first, I would like to introduce myself again. I am Roberto Rossi. I am the cluster president of Schneider Electric for Indonesia. The idea of this presentation is to take you through, again, through the challenge that we are facing, where we are in terms of evolution, the opportunities and the risks that we have moving forward, and how Schneider Electric is dealing with them. We are a company that we are the global expert in energy management and industrial automation. And we are in the top 5 more sustainable companies in the world. And that is why we are here, but it's mainly to give a testimony, not to be an expert like the rest in education, right? So moving forward, this is the topic. It's as simple as that. What you see on the screen is not normal, and it's clear now that it is the result of the human being interaction in the world. It's not a given, it's not normal, it's just because we are not behaving well. And then, let's face it, we have done a lot, right? Already with all the activities that we have developed worldwide, we reduced the trajectory from plus 6 degrees to plus 2.5, but it's not enough. It's not what we agreed in 2015 in Paris Agreement, and that is why we need to accelerate. We need to go 3 times faster. We need to go from 4 gigatons saving per year to 10 to 15 gigatons by 2030. And then, what is happening is that more and more and more companies around the world are committing on this journey, which is great, right? This is the picture by 2022. Is becoming exponential, and this exponential growth is all along all the type of companies. Small companies, medium companies, large companies. For sure, always the first mover are the large one, but the large one push the rest in the value chain. And what is more important is that it's across the globe. It's not only Europe, it's not only Americas, but also Asia is part of this journey. And then, what is about the challenge? It's quite simple and quite difficult. The first topic is to replace. One topic is how we work in the decarbonization of the supply. And there the equation is pretty simple. Either we find solutions on site to decarbonize, going to solar, microgrid, and storage, or we buy from other site production in solar through the network that we have. This, we are working on that. We are helping PLN and other companies to do that. We are a company that is already 50 years in the country, but it takes time. This is not overnight. And then is the other part of the equation, the fastest and the most meaningful one today, which is to reduce what we are consuming now and to electrify. To reduce, looking for not only the OPEX, but also the CAPEX. As was stated before, sometimes we build still not net zero buildings, which is not acceptable anymore. We in Schneider, our headquarters in France, are already net zero buildings. It's possible to build it, but it's a topic of intention, architectures and design and control. So it's not only the topic of reduction of the consumption, but also to build in a way that during the construction we are reducing the carbon footprint and also taking into account the total cost of ownership, including the moving forward consumption to produce. And then we need to measure, we need to have circularity for sustainability and electrification. Why electrification? Because we need to move out from the fossil fuel solution, gas, oil, or whatever, and we need to jump into processes, electrify, either with the full electricity or with green hydrogen or other solutions, but we need to move there. And the good part is that the solution already exists. It is what we call electricity 4.0. Electricity 4.0 is the conversions in between digital and electric. Electric because it's more efficient and also can be generated in a green way, and digital because through software, analytics, and advisor, we can understand that what we are doing and we can change our behavior to be more respectful with the resources. And this is already changing the equation. If you see this was the old model, right? We produce, we transport, we consume. Pretty simple. But what we see now is that we start to have generation everywhere. And then we are starting to build in countries like US, Germany, Spain, more bi-directional flow, where the same people that is consumer is producer. They storage and they sell, what we call today prosumers. And then we are electrifying. We are electrifying transportation, we are electrifying heaters, etc. And on top of that, by putting the digital technology, we are reducing the consumption and we are doing every day saving around 5 to 7% in cities, specialized cities in central countries that we can do here everywhere. And coming back to the topic, so we went through the challenge and the opportunities. This slide is quite busy, but I want to highlight one block, which is the skill. The skill around it is the key pillar, because we have already all these technologies, but to put together all these technologies to make it happen is not so simple. And it requires, first, intense sense of sustainability approach. People need to be aware of the challenge and want to work to challenge back the situation, and then jumping into technologies in all layers. And coming back to the slide about the job generation, this is pretty much focused on only energy. We consider that we will have by 2030 24 million only based on energy transition topics. And if we move forward toward renewable electricity, we consider that we will generate 2.5 million, which is almost 5 times of the job that today is generating the fossil fuel-based power. So it's not a topic of destruction or reduction of people, labor opportunities. It's a topic of how we work with them to develop them to take the next wave. And this is pretty much for Indonesia. By 2030, we consider more than 1 million will be needed on this domain. And for us, it's clear, it's not one play. We need to play in different domains. We need to work strong in vocational school curriculum, universities curriculum, as well as the current workforce team, because we need to leverage them. They are already expert, and we can brief them to make it happen. And what is it about? Is only technical? No. It's, as I said, for sure the technical capabilities are key on energy management, automation, digitization, software, communication, but also the core skills like collaboration, resiliency, communication, as well as the intense respect for the climate change and for the environment. And then one of the questions before coming here is, how is Schneider do that? How is Schneider Electric drive this? And for us, the way is to introduce this already in the purpose of the company. Our purpose is to empower all to make the most of our energy and resources, bridging progress and sustainability for all. We call this in Schneider Life is On, and our mission is to be the digital partner for sustainability and efficiency for our customer. And starting by the purpose, we move to long-term commitments in positive impact for climate, be efficient with the resources, principle of trust with all the stakeholders, equal opportunities, to empower all the generation, and to take local commitments in every operation that we are worldwide. We are in more than 120 countries around the world. And for every of them, we take small commitments, but meaningful, fully aligned with the United Nations Development Goals. And now I want to put focus specifically in the one related to people development. Related to people development, the first brick for us is to create equal opportunities. We are working first to secure that we don't have bias across religion, gender orientation, gender balance, etc. We give the team internally to develop themselves, because sometimes we say we need to develop the current workforce, but we don't give the time. That is why we give full weeks for internal training. And we have also some programs to onboard in our company people who is coming from vulnerable background to learn about technology and to understand what is going on this domain. And we also are focused on harness the power of all the generations. We work with the Ministry of Industry promoting PD 4.0 some weeks ago with Paagus, presented Industry 4.0 and decarbonization. We also work in the training center of Indy 4.0. We have program for the secondary school. We have one program which we call Generators, where we take 250 educators to impact across the country in several institutions. We also collaborate with the Ministry of Education in vocational school. We already upgraded 144 SMK, and we train already 27,000 students in Indonesia in energy management and green transition. We have a program to incorporate fresh graduates to secure decent job for the new generations. And we have programs in which we launch across all the universities competition about green solutions, and we reward them and we expose them regionally and globally. We also work with the local communities in trees, in circularity, in education. We give to the communities training with our employees. We work to try to have an impact in the country beyond the operation of the company. In a brief, we consider that it's a collective duty. We partner with the government to secure curriculums and to secure the long term. We work in our premises to secure the education around it. We deploy our technologies to all our partners to secure that all our partners will know how to make it happen. But more important is to keep creating the ecosystem that people that is interested on make it happen, like the people who is here, who is around it. It's a collective action to bridge the progress and sustainability for all. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Thank you, Roberto. It's very interesting. So we listened about one of the interesting programs that Schneider has already done relating to the sustainability internally for the company and also for the local communities. So the programs such as the Harness the Power of All Generations and also working together with lots of local schools here. And also Roberto highlights that it is very important to integrate the digital and also the electric side, because we cannot avoid this, the increasing of digitalization, which will also occur around the world. So it will create also sustainability if we integrate this digital and electric sectors here. And also, the last thing that is very interesting that Roberto also mentioned about prosumers. So consumers right now is going to be the producers itself for the electricity sector. Thank you, Roberto. So the next speakers will be Professor Djoko Santoso. Professor Djoko Santoso will share with us the strategy of the academia or in university in preparing the future human capital to stay relevant with the energy transition right now. So please, Professor Djoko, the stage is yours.
So actually, what I would like to mention is about our experience, how we respond in relation to make it the lower carbon, as well as also the energy transition in Indonesia. So the first, so I will talk a little bit about an issue that already mentioned by Pak Eric or also by previous speakers. So actually, because we need an energy, somebody tell me that according to our law, energy is not only that one, but the ability for us to work, that is an energy. But anyway, according to my understanding as the practitioners in the area of energy myself, is something like this. So we need an energy, and this one will be increased. Consequently, we got the phenomena, something like this. So this one is about our phenomena that we use mostly of the fossil energy. And currently in Indonesia, fossil energy is still the important role to fulfill our need of the energy. On the other hand, this one, Pak Eric also mentions, also the previous speaker also mentioned that the process is very important. So we can compare this one. This figure actually is that the carbon is not only directly what we can see, but the process is also important. And then this one actually what our effort to make our country is become developed. Actually, for instance, that our GDP is also already 10 times while we have independence in 1945. And at the end, consequently, what happened? Soviet become the 9th largest emitter for the carbon dioxide. So what we have to do right now is to make the economic diversification based on energy, of course, as mentioned by I'm sorry, I forgot your name, Roberto before. So, and then also in that case, we need the more cleaner energy to be developed, what we call it energy transition. Even before, we call it, this one is diversification energy. Okay, so I think this one is just about how the economic develop in the next decade, actually. And then this one is about how we move from the exporting country to become the net importing country for the oil and then, but in the gas production, so we are still promising, actually. This figure is really explained to us. So if we are develop our nations and then become more higher GDP, consequently, right now, the carbon dioxide emission is become greater. So this one we already thinking before, so we need what we call it the energy mix. And year by year, actually, our effort is to reduce the use of the fossil fuel is become happen by some of another energy resources. This one another pictures for the electricity generation in Indonesia using the renewable energy. That one is growing up. And this one is the similar picture with our plan about the use of the energy. And actually, we have thinking that we will have to up to net zero carbon dioxide in the 2060. But in below the pictures, we can see that the source of the energy what we use is still based on the hydrocarbon. And if we are talking about the CCS or CCUS potential technology to research to reduce the CO2 is very huge, actually. And later I have the pictures that recently published by International Energy Association that if we want to reduce up to 2070, that is the picture is about 39 gigaton. So the technology of CCUS especially is nearly up to 20%. So what the people like me, so we are thinking that probably we still can use the fossil fuel as far as we can reduce the carbon dioxide by technology, what we call it carbon capture, utilization, and storage. So this one, the picture, actually, something like this. Okay. So this one in the picture in 2060, so mostly we will use only a gas. Okay. So what is our response actually in university, especially if we are talking about the ITP? So what we have to do is we have to make a research in relation to technology. Besides that, of course, in the area of education and training. So what we have to do, so I can mention something like this. So this one we start talking about the carbon capture and sequestration or carbon capture, utilization and storage is started in 2012. Why? At the time, So we are in collaboration with Kyoto University, we won the research program, what we call it SATREPS from government of Japan. So at the time we tried to make the pilot program for the carbon capture and utilization storage, what we call it in the Gundi field area. So in that area, if we, according to our study, if we want to reduce CO2 about 3 million tons for 10 years, so we will get the incremental productions. So up to 14 PSCF in 10 years. So that one, even we make become lower, but we will gain more dollars, is about the 60 million US dollars. So that one is the incremental production if we apply the carbon capture and utilization strategy in this area. So this one is the picture, what is the research. We work it on that area, but unfortunately, there is some delay about this program because just regulation because in that case we use from the government of Japan budget. So there is the regulation that should be fulfilled first. So this one what we have to do in the if we want become prosper. So that was a little bit opposite if we want to become sustainable. So we need the ethics, standard, and human behavior. And then, so this one actually what we have to do in the higher education. So how we can reduce the emission, so we have to change our culture. So actually this one. So we want to make it in higher education in low carbon culture. So Eric mentioned about what is the green job or something like that. So this one what we have to do, actually we develop national center actually. And this one is our mission of our centers for carbon. So at least we want to make it become the green society. Okay, so the organizations. So this one, the result of knowledge, this one I mentioned before, that in the 2070 for net zero, according to IEA, so we can reduce for carbon capture, utilization and storage, it's up to nearly 20%. Okay, so it's in the way of the reducing up to 2070. So this one, just the cartoon. And actually in Indonesia itself, the fossil fuel is still important factor. So what if we want to use it? So consequently, so we make it become very low carbon. So I think technology can do it. So beside that, of course, we work in the legal area. So the picture below is about the carbon offset from one company to another company, and the picture in the left hand and the right hand side is about the combination between carbon offset and the tax. Okay, so this one is the response of the our government actually. So now in the sector of oil and gas, we have already in the regulation how we will work in the lowering the carbon emission. So this one example how we develop this nickel, and then this one is the technology for the captures, and the challenge is the most costly is about the capture. So this one, what is the technology if you want to make the lowerings? So the technology, partnerships, carbon capture and storage, and then also the incentive. So this one is some of our results. So this one, the area that now is working on the CCS and CCUS. So this one, if we list something like that, and on that, from that 15, so our center actually working on the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 program. Okay. This one, the CO2 source from many main sectors. And then this one is current our study that I mentioned before. And Indonesia, don't forget, we are a coal country. So what are we doing with our coal? So we need to make it become lower. Fortunately, the location of our power plant is very close to our reservoir of oil and gas. So probably we can make and we can apply the technology of the CCUS in our country. Okay, this one another picture. And this one is about storage capacity in Southeast Asia that we make a study with our Japanese colleagues. This one the result. So we can see that we have the huge opportunity actually for this region. This one some cooperations. Okay, this one some study, and the last is about the courses and training. So we did many seminar courses and trainings, whether international or international. So this one some our activity. This one we did with our international collaborators. So ITP is one of the member of International Energy Agency for greenhouse gas. So usually the member is the country, but this one the institution. So the last actually, as the closing, the education is join the national and international cooperation, of course, what we have to do. And we are working on the research, education, training, technical, safety, economic, regulatory framework. On the other hand, it will include mapping potential storage, and Indonesia has the huge picture on that. And in the for CO2 utilization, so we should make the diversification, for instance, to produce methanol, and then feasibility study on the blue hydrogens, and the study on the development of business model and MRV for the CCS and CCUS as well, and the capacity building that will include the seminar, training, and educations. So that's all that I would like to mention. Thank you very much, Ibu Wilda.
Thank you, Professor Djoko. Very insightful presentation. So Professor Djoko has highlighted actually that higher education right now has prepared students to anticipate the coming energy transition right now with several research and training that has also been done with ITB, in particular in the field of reducing carbon in the fossil fuel sector, such as CCUS and so on. So the higher education right now has support green sector by emphasizing on technology. This is very important to Indonesia actually. Actually, we can also combine with the digital that Roberto has mentioned, technology and digital side that we need to prepare in the higher education. Thank you, Professor Djoko. Now, last but not least, our next speaker is Dr. Anindito Aditomo. Dr. Aditomo will share the current updates of the Indonesian curriculum and potential subject matter associated with the sustainability, climate crisis, and energy transition issues. So, Dr. Aditomo, please kindly deliver your presentation for about 50 minutes. The stage is yours.
Many thanks, Ibu Filda. Selamat pagi semuanya. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Salam sejahtera, salam sehat untuk kita semuanya. A very good morning, everyone. My name is Anindito Aditomo. People call me Nino. I'm responsible for the development of education standards, the curriculum framework at the national level, and as well as how the ministry and the government evaluate schools and districts in terms of education. So I'm very happy to be here. I think it's a very good opportunity for us in the Ministry of Education to share recent developments in education policy that's related to climate change and sustainability. This is not the typical audience that we usually speak to, so I'm very happy to be learning from the previous speakers as well, Roberto, Prof. Djoko, and Eric. So as we know, as one of the signatories of the Paris Agreement, Indonesia has a commitment to achieve net zero by 2060. That's less than 40 years from now, and as the previous speakers have made clear, it's not an easy task at all to achieve this commitment. One of the key things that we need to do is to shift the mix of energy sources that we use in Indonesia, and that will require new jobs, what Eric called green jobs, which is underlined by new skills and new competencies as well. And Prof. Djoko mentioned that, yes, the role of higher education here is very critical. So that's one side of the story. We need to transition higher education and vocational education in Indonesia so that we can train people with the right skills to be able to fill these new green jobs in the future. But that is only one side of the coin. I think Roberto used the analogy of a coin, right? The flip side is equally and maybe even more important than the supply side. So if previously we were talking about the supply side, the energy supply, the other side would be the energy demand. And here we are talking about the beliefs, the values, the behaviors, the habits of all of us as individuals, as citizens as well. And for this, we need to change the education system not only in terms of the kinds of skills that needs to be provided to supply the new labor force, but also to change people's behaviors and mindsets and values from the very beginning. And that is why we are engaging in a very quite radical reform in our national curriculum from early childhood to high school and higher education. And we have a long way to go. So on the left side there, we quote surveys done by, I can't really read it from here. That's a UNESCO survey in 2021, surveying 100 countries' national curriculum. And only half made any reference to climate change. So even referencing climate change is only done by half of the countries surveyed here. Although most teachers believe that it's important to address climate change in education, but only about 55% of those teachers surveyed reported any kind of training to be able to teach climate change in their classrooms. In Indonesia itself, we have a survey conducted last year, 2021, and similarly, only about half feel confident that they are aware of climate change, whereas the other half feels that climate change is ambiguous, abstract, and often something that is not personal to them. So it's somebody else's problem instead of something that is impacting me at a personal level. And only 44% of Indonesians surveyed can give a basic definition of climate change. So this is where we are at the moment, unfortunately. So we have a long way to go in terms of building awareness and changing mindsets and behaviors. Obviously, the Ministry of Education is well positioned for doing something about this through our policies regarding curriculum assessment, education standards. We can reach potentially more than 50 million students within the education system, from early childhood to higher education. So that's a lot of people. This is the next generation of the nation, as well as 3.5 million teachers and more than 400,000 principals and close to 310,000 lecturers and professors in higher education. So in Indonesia, we have a decentralized education system where the central government can set the standards, the national curriculum framework and assessment policies. However, the teachers are not employed by the central government. The schools are not run by the central government. Teachers are employed by local governments. Schools are run by local governments as well. So we have to work through the local governments and especially through those teachers and principals who are interacting with the students on a day-to-day level if we are to achieve what we want to, which is to change the mindsets and values of citizens of the future. That's why the Ministry of Education is putting in place 6 interventions, 3 of which are directly related to the topic of this today's seminar with regards to focusing on the human capital side. I will elaborate more on these 3 initiatives. So we are, first of all, integrating climate change into the national curriculum. We are introducing the learning of climate change in higher education as well, and building campaign narratives for the public. So let me elaborate on each of these initiatives. So with regards to the national curriculum, maybe some of you are familiar with Kurikulum Merdeka. Kurikulum Merdeka is our new national curriculum. It was rolled out last year as on a voluntary level. So we are offering this new national framework to schools. Last year, around 140,000 schools voluntarily chose to apply the national curriculum in their schools. And this year, still on a voluntary basis, we have an additional 140,000 schools applying the new national curriculum. So around 300,000, which is 80% of the formal schools in Indonesia, have started to implement the new curriculum, the Kurikulum Merdeka. So just to give you a sense of the kind of breadth and reach that we can get through this kind of policy. Now, what are we doing in the national curriculum that's related to climate change? First of all, we are modifying the learning outcomes in the new national curriculum. We are infusing competencies related to knowledge, values, and skills related to climate change into the learning outcome of the new national curriculum. So all students in Indonesia, if they are using this new national curriculum, will learn about the causes of climate change, the impacts of climate change, how we can mitigate through collective action, personal action, as well the adaptation that we need to do as a society in response to climate change. Another feature of the new national curriculum is that we have 20 to 30% of the curricular time, instructional time, dedicated to character development. This is character development, but through project-based learning. And one of the compulsory topics within this 20 to 30% curricular time is related to climate change. So starting from next year, all schools in Indonesia must choose at least one project-based learning that is related to climate change and sustainability. And the role of the government here is to provide examples and models of the kinds of project-based learning that they can implement in their school. So teachers, obviously, not many teachers will have the knowledge and the experience to create project-based learning around sustainability. That's why we are creating a lot of toolkits that teachers can use in their classrooms. So you can see 3 examples of the kinds of toolkits that we are developing for this purpose. Some of them are related to local wisdom. So there's a project that harnesses ancestral teachings, local wisdoms, and earth-centric values through climate-relevant practices. There are modules, examples about entrepreneurship, so food security and economic independence through permaculture practices, for example, and sustainable lifestyles, understanding climate decisions and how to overcome them. Now that's early childhood to high school. The second initiative is related to vocational and higher education in Indonesia. And very happy to hear about Schneider's collaboration with the ministry. We would like to see many more of that kind of collaboration with the industry. Here, if you are students in the university, you will be familiar with MBKM, Kampus Merdeka, the Kampus Merdeka initiative, where we are mandating universities across Indonesia to provide the choice for university students to learn outside of the university through internships, through student mobility schemes, becoming research and teaching assistants, humanity projects, and project-based studies, and so on. For the past 2 years, more than 400,000 students have participated in this out-of-campus experience, and we are looking to collaborate with many more industries and community projects that is related to climate change and sustainability under this MBKM scheme. The middle part there is about SMKs, so vocational schools in Indonesia and polytechnics. We are always looking for more corporations to map the demands of green jobs in Indonesia and to fit the SMK and polytechnic curriculums for those demands. On the right side there, we have a matching fund scheme where universities and industries with green economy as our main focus can collaborate. So we can match whatever amount of money that the industry is willing to commit. We give the same amount of money for research and development projects, especially in green economy areas. And up to now, there has been more than 1,000 projects funded through this scheme. This is the third initiative related to human capital from the ministry. This is more through cultural activities. So TV Indonesiana, if you know about it. If you don't, please Google it, Indonesiana TV. We have a lot of initiatives through our Dirjen Kebudayaan that is promoted through the Indonesiana TV. We are working with many seniman, artists who, a lot of them have concerns about sustainability and climate change. So this is more of a public campaign, working together with artists across Indonesia to promote values rooted in our cultural traditions. And last, I just want to mention that we cannot do any of this without retraining of our teachers. And that is why one of the main strategies of the ministry is to activate and empower what we call teacher learning communities across Indonesia. We are changing the way we train teachers. Previously, it was through cascading approach, where the ministry trains national trainers, and then the national trainers train regional trainers, and then the regional trainers train sub-regional trainers, and so on. That will never work in a country of our scale, just because of the logistics of it. Now we are providing all of the national level standardized materials through digital platforms. We have a digital platform called Platform Merdeka Mengajar, which is already downloaded by 2.2 million teachers across Indonesia. It's used by 1.6 million teachers. Regular users is around 200 to 300,000 teachers across Indonesia, depending on the month. So this is used by a lot of teachers across Indonesia. And this is how they get their training now. Through their phones, through their computers, they can access many, many training modules provided by the ministry and different national partners. So if your foundation, for example, or companies such as Schneider are interested to work together to develop training modules in relations to sustainability for teachers, we could really collaborate and really scale it up in a way that's not possible if you use an approach that is completely offline. So this is just a summary of what we are doing. We hope to be able to, first of all, ignite curiosity in the minds of our citizens, our young generations, and to prompt action, both personal and collective action, and to inspire others to move along. Again, just to close, to reiterate the call for collaboration, we have many, many initiatives in the Ministry of Education, and we are constantly looking for partners, either for places to intern. I don't know whether Schneider is working together with the ministry, but if not, we can talk about whether Schneider and other companies maybe can provide places for internship for our higher education students. We can develop joint research and development projects that can be funded through our matching fund scheme. In the curriculum sector, we can develop case studies as learning materials for projects in Curriculum Merdeka that teachers can use in their classrooms from early childhood to SMA, high school, and develop, again, modules to train teachers in this field. And I'll stop there. Give it back to you. Thank you so much for your attention.
Thank you, Dr. Anindito. Wow, Dr. Anindito has provided very comprehensive programs. Actually, not only we frequently heard about Kampus Merdeka, but we haven't actually seen that Kampus Merdeka actually opens up a view about the climate change and so on. So, since actually early childhood to senior high school, that the programs itself include climate change in curriculum and also the project-based, that minimum at least one project related to climate change. And also, this is a very, very positive and very optimistic for us to support the program from the Ministry of Education. So, thank you for all the speakers. Very insightful, and we now enter a crucial phase of our session, which is the interactive question and answer session. This is really a great opportunity to engage directly with the speakers here. If you have a question or comment, kindly raise your hand. The chosen participant can use the standing microphone, or there's no standing microphone. So maybe the committee will provide the microphone. Before asking question, please state your name and affiliation. Also kindly specify the name of the speaker to whom the question is directed. Wow, okay. Many raised hands. Maybe we can start with only 2 questions first. The lady in the back, ladies first, and one more. Okay, Bapak in the front. Okay, go. Yes, the lady in the back. Microphone, please, the committee.
Good morning, panelists and speakers. Thank you for the insightful and comprehensive discussion and matters on regards to accelerating the green energy. My name is Ali from the Ministry of Energy and Mineral Resources. And I have one point of discussion here regarding the transition from extractive to green industries, which one of the controversies is related to electric vehicle, as mentioned by the speakers. There are a lot of notions from the community stating that it is only a way to displace the source of emission from engines to the industries itself. Therefore, are there any scheme that could balance or even reduce the emission from electric vehicles industries, because that will affect the public interest to invest us in common green energy? Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mbak Alin. The next question from Bapak.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, Ibu Filda. My name is Cahyo Kartiko. I'm from Koperasi CHP. It's a cooperative CHP. Should be clear, it's not private cogeneration, but cooperative CHP. So on behalf of cooperatives, I see a lot of planning jobs, So I wish to ask to Mr. Anindito, can you imagine that if international standards, for example, IEC, ISO, and ITU, can be introduced to national energy systems? But it's not the question. The question is still a lot of job, a lot of planning, a lot of planners, the need of planners. So the question should be to Professor Djoko, can you expose the potential of School of Planning from ITB? Because planning or planners is the problem of the world right now, not only the problem of Indonesia. I see the potential of planners as a new job, as a new profession, is very clear for PII, Persatuan Insinyur Indonesia. Otherwise, we only to be economists or only to be bankers. I am engineers. I need the job for planning, strategic planning. Thank you.
Thank you, Pak. Sorry, your name, Pak? And institution?
Cahyo Kartiko.
Cahyo, Pak Cahyo. From?
Yeah. Koperasi CHP.
Koperasi.
It's CHP, Combined Heat and Power.
Okay, thank you, Professor. Thank you, Pak Cahyo. Pak Cahyo, Professor. Okay, the first one is from Mbak Alin from Ministry of Energy and Mineral Resources. I think the question can be directed to Roberto and also Professor Djoko, maybe, about the technology. So concerning the electric vehicles in industry and what is actually the suitable scheme for these electric vehicles. And the second is from Pak Cahyo about the ISO energy system and planning jobs for Dr. Anindito, and also the second one for Professor Djoko about the School of Planning. Maybe Roberto, you can answer the first question.
Hello. Yes. So I guess the question is how to do the transition, right? So how to do the transition from where we are to where we need to be. So I do not see controversies. What is important is to develop the plan. We have a lot of nickel in the country. We are now with more than 30 projects in nickel in the country, which is extractive. But the government of Indonesia is taking right decisions to say we will not export nickel, we will produce batteries, right? So all the value chain will be here, taking care of the circularity of these batteries. And moving forward, along with the distributed energy resources that we need to put in place, solar panels, geothermal, and other resources, we need to start to develop with PLN the distribution of all this smart grid to have the chargers on the road, in buildings, in hospital, in shopping mall, and in houses. This will not be overnight, right? So in early 20th century, Ford Motor started with a car, and it took 50 years to have car everywhere. And this will be the same. That is why the transition will not be overnight. In cars, we consider it will take 10 years to be where we should be. But all the journey that we see moving forward is very positive. More and more technologies are reducing consumption, are more efficient. The concept of prosumer in Europe is already there. That means you can charge your car at night where the electricity is cheaper, where the generation can be hydraulic, etc., etc. So it will be a transition. We need the government through regulation, in industrialization, in production, and in the development of the right infrastructure to be at the helm of this transition, and all the technological companies need to support, but the future is just promising for me without major controversy. Back to you.
Okay, thank you, Roberto. Professor Djoko, would you like to add something?
Well, Ibu Alwi, ya. So what we have to do actually, besides we talking about the vehicle, of course the energy transition, so that it should be balanced. So we have to work it side by side. Why? Because the most easiest way to reduce carbon dioxide is from transportations. So the number is up to more than 30%. So that one is 32%. But while we make the electrification in the vehicle, we also try to promote about the energy transitions. So if both sides work together, hopefully we can achieve the net zero. Well, if not by 2060, probably by 2070. And then the second one, Pak Cahyo, yeah? Well, Pak Cahyo, actually, of course, we have what we call it Faculty of Architecture and Public Policy. So everything what we talking here, it should be formulated in the planning side, Pak. So I will talk to our colleagues in ITP. Please, everybody aware about the lowering the carbon, about the how make the, probably we can introduce green planning. So we can, yeah, so we can learn from Pak Eric, we can learn also from Pak Roberto for our planning. I think that one the addition, Ibu. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Professor Djoko. The next one will be Dr. Anindito to answer the question from Pak Cahyo.
Thank you, Pak Cahyo, for the question, but I don't think it should be directed to me if you are asking about national standards in energy. My portfolio, unfortunately, covers education standards only, but maybe somewhat related to that is standards for education buildings. So school buildings, university buildings, and we are working on that as well. We are reviewing existing standards and to see whether we can revise those standards so that school buildings, the next generation of school buildings will all be net zero. But that's very difficult, and one of the difficulties is that, first of all, national standards are by definition minimum standards. So if we require all schools to be green buildings, that has cost implications, that has capex implications, that has to be footed by somebody. And the central government currently doesn't have fiscal room for that. So we are still talking to PEMDAS, local governments, on what is feasible for them. It has to be the PEMDAS who are building these school buildings. We are also thinking of creating incentives for universities to become green in their management and in the architectures and the buildings. So that's in the pipeline. Hopefully something can be announced next year. Right. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Anindito. Okay, we will have the next questions and session. Okay, this side, Mas, one, and then lady again. Yeah, okay, the first one, yes. Go ahead, Mas.
Okay, Assalamualaikum. Okay, thanks very much. My name is Dedi Wahyudi from Pajajaran University. A question to Mr. Professor Djoko Santoso. It's about CCS, carbon capture storage. What will happen if there is a leakage in the CCS on the surrounding environment? It means if there is explosion or fire, and how to prevent it? Okay, thanks very much.
Okay, thank you. The next question.
So, hi, I'm Hardana. I'm here with the Indonesia Research Institute for Decarbonization. One of the issues that we are currently working on is just transition. So, I would like to direct two questions to Mr. Roeder. The first one is, when we're talking about just transition, the idea itself originates from the labor movement, from the workers' movement. So, of course, in terms of transitioning to more green society and economy, the workers will be affected. And you mentioned earlier about the lack of integration in the government policy. So I'd like to know more about what kind of role that the Ministry of Labor or the Ministry of Manpower can take part within the decision making to formulate the policy design of the just energy transition. And also, if there's any best practice throughout the Asian countries, please, if you don't mind, share it with us. And my question is actually twofold. The next one, I'd like to direct the next question to the representative from the Ministry of Education. So I'm very glad to hear about integrating the climate awareness and education within our curriculum. But we cannot deny the fact that education remains a privilege up to this day, not to mention accessing the higher level of education. I mean, when we're talking about the inclusive energy roadmap, everyone should be involved, no one left behind. So I am more curious about your take on how are we going to make this climate education more accessible to the vulnerable students and youth across the country. So that's all from me. Thank you.
Thank you, Mbak Hardana. Yeah, okay. So the first question from Mas Wahyudi about CCS, Professor Djoko will answer that. And from Mbak Hardana for Mr. Roeder about the lack of integration and how can the Ministry of Labor role in this to support. And also Dr. Anindito about the how to impact the climate awareness in the curriculum to the vulnerable people. Go ahead, Professor Djoko first.
Thank you very much. So, Mas Wahyudi is asked about the very, very technical actually. And the first is about the leakage. So actually, if we try to make the feasibility study for a certain reservoir that we want to sequester the carbon dioxide, so we can calculate everything, including what is the maximum pressure that may happen in the reservoir after we injected the carbon dioxide. So if we still working below the that value, so it will be safe. Of course, beside that, we prepare also what we call it monitoring after the injection. And it will monitor, goes up to probably more than 100 years, something like that, day by day. And what happens if there is the leakage? Of course, directly we will make some actions that even it is leakage, it not really make the danger to the environment. So, and don't worry too much with carbon dioxide actually. It's around here is we have carbon dioxide as well. So don't worry too much. Anyway, but if only if it is a certain value, that one is dangerous. So that one that would we try to mitigate if that one happen. Of course, according to the experience that some country already make it. For instance, Gorgon in Australia and also in United States and Japan, it won't happen actually. So according to their experience. So actually we are very optimistic for this technology. Thank you, Filda.
Thank you, Professor Djoko. The next one, Mr. Roeder? Yes.
Okay, thank you very much for the question. So, best practices in the region, but I can think of how the Ministry of Labor here could work better with the trade unions, work better with the private sector and so forth. There are examples from Malaysia. The Ministry of Human Resources, we had a project with the ministry, this is in Malaysia, and the MTUC, which is the Malaysian Trade Union Confederation, as well as different employers such as Nippon Paints in the chemical and pharmaceutical sector. So we're talking about greening the chemical sector in Malaysia and Vietnam. This is the project. But in Malaysia, it was very good because MOHR, which is the labor ministry, did sit down with the trade unions. It did sit down with the companies that are involved in the industry to ensure that when we're talking about workers that are in the chemical and pharmaceutical sector, as they transition away it could be the same job actually in many cases in the chemical sector, for example, because there's innovations that allow you to use move away from certain types of chemicals that are being used in certain processes, and also in the pharmaceutical sector. How you produce paracetamol, for example, can be done much more cleanly. And this was all done with MTUC and with MOHR. Of course, since MOHR is the ministry, they felt that they would take the lead because it's the government. But they gave equal voice to the trade union, equal voice to Nippon Paint, different pharmaceutical companies and so forth, to sit down in a tripartite manner to discuss how to transition and where these workers could, how these workers would transition in this particular sector. Would they lose their job? Would they need more? What are the skills needed if they're moving away from the types of processes that call on more difficult chemicals that need to be used, such as in paints and so forth. So that would be an ASEAN example of a best practice where the ministry did sit down in a tripartite manner. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Roeder. The next one, Dr. Anindito.
Thank you. I didn't catch the name of the Bu Hardana. Thank you so much. 100% agree with you that education has to be inclusive. That's why how we formulate Merdeka Belajar in the ministry is that we want to provide equal opportunity access to high quality education for all. Now, with regards to climate change education, that's precisely why we need climate change education from the very beginning, from early childhood and primary schooling, not only in higher education. Because higher education, access to higher education is still pretty much a privilege in Indonesia. But for SD, SMP, we have reached almost 100% participation. In most regions in Indonesia, the participation rate is 100%. In high school, in most of the bigger cities, it's above 90%. So it's already much more inclusive than even 10 to 15 years ago. And we are trying to design projects that everyone across the country, project-based learning activities that everyone across the country can participate in. That means we are seeking for projects that require very little technology, for example, or no additional cost even. I'll give you one example that we are designing at the moment. We are working with biology professors and lecturers and researchers across Indonesia in a project where high school and middle school students in Indonesia can use their phones to collect data on biodiversity around their schools and around their environments in the home. So the aim collectively is to calculate what we call a biodiversity index at the local level. So even at the kecamatan, sub-district levels, we will be able to pinpoint the biodiversity index for each of those regions, and we can track them over time. Now, this is one of the few, if we are successful in this, we will be among the very few countries in the world that will have a biodiversity index at that local level. So this is a project that's scientifically authentic. So there's an outcome that is significant scientifically. Projects like this around the world have identified even new species, for example, which can be documented and published in academic journals later on. But for the kids, this will be an exciting and fun way to learn about the impact of climate change on biodiversity in their local level, right? This is like Pokemon, finding new Pokemons around their house, but this is actual creatures, plants and animals around their house. And this requires very little technology, just use their phones. Everyone has a phone with a camera now. We just need to design a national digital platform where we can store all the data and analyze the data automatically and then aggregate that at the national level. So that's one way we are providing climate change education in an inclusive manner. Thank you.
Thank you. Very interesting, Dr. Anindito. Okay, we will open one session, not one more, because we have lots of time here. The Mas over here and the lady over there. Okay. Go ahead, Mas.
Okay, thank you, Bu Filda. Thanks for the opportunity. First, my name is Krishna. I am the student from ITB majoring in geological engineering. I have a question for Mr. Anindito. First, how do you ensure that innovation and creativity will be integral to our current education and training? How do you monitor and trace its progress? And the second question I would like to direct it to Professor Djoko Santoso. In your opinion, what are the most effective ways to nurture and train our bright minds? The minds that are literate and numerate, the minds that are able to think critically, to be innovative, to be creative so that they can produce something of value, seize opportunity, benefit from changes, and create employment. because I think the quality of nation manpower resource is the single most important factor determining national competitiveness. That's all my question. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mas Krishna. The next question.
Hello, good morning, everyone. My name is Dina. I come from PT PLN Persero. So my first question is for Eric. As your presentation told us about ILO just transition guideline, what's your opinion about gender equity for achieve social justice for workers? And maybe can you explain us about the example, maybe in Asia or Europe for the gender equity? So for my second question is Roberto, Rossi. My question is, what's your opinion about skill? Where the position skill in digital and electrical? As you told us, the question of sustainable is digital and electrical. So what's the priority? Are we to increase the fundamental or technical? And could you explain us about gender equity in your company to achieve the energy transition for workers? So maybe Mr. Anindito, also the question is, what's your opinion about gender equity in your workers as maybe for increase the awareness of climate change? Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mbak Dina. So the first question for Dr. Anindito, maybe you can also answer the question about the gender equality. Yes.
Yeah, okay, I'll try my best. Thank you. Who was the first
Mas Krishna?
questioner? Krishna.
And the first one is about
Krishna. It's about ensuring innovation and
Yeah.
creativity in education. You hit the nail right in the head, Krishna, because this is why we are changing the national curriculum and how we evaluate schools as well. So for those of you unfamiliar with the current education reform, the first thing that the Minister Nadiem did, announced in November, I think, 2019, is to abolish what we call Ujian Nasional, the national exam. Right? So we got rid of a high-stakes, content-based national exam at grade 9 and grade 12. And we are replacing that with what we call a national assessment of the education system. The major shift from Ujian Nasional to Assessment Nasional is what counts as a metric of success in our education system. Previously, it was how much do you know? Previously, it was the breadth of knowledge. How much do you know from the curriculum content? Now we got rid of that. We are no longer measuring anyone's knowledge, breadth of knowledge of the curriculum content. Instead, what we are measuring is the ability to reason and problem solve. So what we call literacy and numeracy is actually reasoning abilities, critical thinking in terms of processing information that you read and applying basic math to everyday problems. Right? Those are the main metrics of what counts as a successful school, what counts as a successful district government. So now, every school in Indonesia will be judged, will be evaluated based on how many of their students are able to read and evaluate what they read. How many of their students are able to understand basic mathematics and apply that to concrete problems in a logical manner. Right, so this is a major shift in education policy. Maybe not everyone has realized it, but so first of all, what we did is we changed the metric of success. What counts as a successful school and education system? It's no longer about how much you know. It's about whether your school, whether your district is successful in facilitating the development of students' reasoning abilities. Right? And district governments now are evaluated mainly based on the number of students in their districts, that achieve a minimum level of competency and reasoning ability as well. So this is the first year that we have implemented that. I think Pemdas and Bupatis and Wali Kotas and governors around Indonesia are, not many of them are realizing that, but by next year when they see that their SPM scores are red, but that they have not met the minimum threshold in terms of education quality, then many of them will start to wonder, okay, how do I improve the quality of teaching and learning in my schools, in my districts? And second, what we are doing in terms of stimulating innovation and creativity, apart from changing the metric of success, is changing the curriculum itself and how we train teachers to teach that curriculum. Curriculum Merdeka, one of the main features of Curriculum Merdeka is we got rid of of around 30 to 40% of the academic content. In the previous curriculum 2013, teachers had very little time to attend to the process of learning. So they had no time to, for example, do diagnostic assessment in the beginning of the semester. They had little time to adjust how they teach according to the students' needs, because there was so much content mandated by the Ministry of Education. So what they did throughout the semester is just teach, one-way teaching, because there was so much content. That's the main problem with the previous curriculum. That's why we had to change it, and we got rid of about 30 to 40% of the curriculum content that's mandated by the government. That will allow teachers to have more time to develop reasoning skills, among other things. Because if we are talking about innovation, creativity, that kind of learning takes time, right? One concept, if 2 hour teaching time, you can go through 50 slides if you are just teaching one way. But if you want to develop reasoning abilities, then you have to engage in discussions. You have to use teamwork. You have to use projects. And there's no way of applying that if the content is too crowded in the curriculum. So that's the second major reform that we are introducing. A curriculum that is actually seriously focused on developing competencies and character instead of delivering a lot of content. And obviously the third part of that is how we train teachers to shift their mindsets and to develop the skills of applying that kind of curriculum in the classroom. With regards to gender equity, I'm not sure where the question is headed, but in the national assessment, one component, one indicator of a good school is schools that have good gender equity. So we actually have a sub-indicator measuring gender equity in each school in Indonesia, both in terms of the values and beliefs of the teachers and the students, as well as school policies in terms of gender equity. So, but I'm sorry, I don't know how to relate that to climate change at the moment. But happy to talk further.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Anindito. Maybe still related to the gender equality, from Eric and Roberto.
Okay, thank you very much for the question. As you know, the ILO, as I mentioned earlier in my presentation, we have a lot of work in the garment sectors. And so in the garment factories, the vast majority of workers are women workers, and they are, of course, impacted by climate here. As the temperatures continue to rise, factory floors actually get warmer, and we've developed a report where there's a correlation where violence against women workers increases as the factory floor it gets warmer. So there's a correlation there in terms of climate change. And then gaining a voice for workers, like say in the garment sector, this is the example I can give, has to be through trade union, joining a trade union and ensuring that your voice is there, because women's voice women worker is in the factories 90% plus, so they should have a stronger voice. But to do that, you have to be in a in the trade union and ensure that that the factory that you're working for also allows you to do that. So it also takes working with the management as well. It's not easy, unfortunately. Now, looking at education, which was touched on by my colleague, I know that in places such as North Sulawesi, that marine biology, jobs in terms of preserving natural capital. When we visited the Bunukan National Marine Reserve, we met a bunch of graduate students. There were 15. 14 were young women, graduate students who are interested, who are getting their degrees in marine biology and forestry and so forth. So that's very encouraging, and I was wondering why is this in North Sulawesi? If you go to North Sulawesi and you meet with the local government officials, which we did when we went there into Manado City, 90% of the local government officials are women. And so why that is, but from my understanding in North Sulawesi, it seems to be a best practice because we're able to work very well with the local government there, and I thought it was very interesting to see that the number of women in government there. So I'm not sure there's other examples in Indonesia, but I'm sure there is, but that's one example that I can think of. But in terms of how to improve gender equity in any particular sector, it really it takes trying to gain your voice through a trade union as an example, because we're pushing social dialogue, and part of the social dialogue aspect is that the workers' voices. So in the garment sector case, then it's women's voice that is the most important voice, because as I mentioned with the linkage to climate change and heat stress, it's having an impact on women workers more than their male counterparts. So thank you.
Thank you, Eric. Roberto?
It's about gender balance, right? No? Equity. So talking about the gender equity and the inclusion, right? So this is the topic board, right? So for us, nothing to do with energy transition, right? So for us, it's at the core of what we do. We are a company of 40 billion euros, out of which we invest 2 billion in R&D. We are highly innovative, and we consider that we cannot be innovative if we don't have all the point of view, and it's not possible to have all the point of view if we don't have a right inclusion and gender balance. It's simple for us in terms of business. It's simple for us in terms of individuals. I have one daughter and one son. We want to have the same opportunity for both, and we want to shape this. Having said that, in Schneider, Indonesia, we are 4,000 people, 53% is women. We actively encourage them to take the education, training, and the same opportunities than the men. Here and there, sometimes we need to force this because bias and misconcept, and we do a lot of workshop to encourage them to make it happen. And it's progressing very well. New generations are more and more active and more natural on that. So jumping into energy transition, we do consider that all the innovation is needed for this energy transition. I see the new generation very engaged with the concept, and the priorities for us is not only the technology, we are a technology partner, but mainly the behavior and the concept around the sustainability. All our trainings are to conceptualize and to understand what is going on, and to give to our employees and to our partners a way to decarbonize. most of the cases we see in all our surveys around the world that even though more than 60% of the companies has already commitment for decarbonization or transition, majority of them are failing. Only 5% are getting what they are looking for, and it's a topic of approach. First, they don't know really how does it mean to decarbonize, and second, it's not structured the way to move forward. There is not an structured way in which you strategize, later you digitize, and then you decarbonize. We consider that moving forward in the curriculum is as important to teach the new generation and the current generation on the technologies, as well as how to implement a process to run this transformation like a marathon and not 100 race. This is the topic. The 100 race is simple. You see the end game and you run. The other one is take longer, take resiliencies, ups and downs, the economy go ups, the election, etc., and you need to keep going. And to keep going, you need to train yourself in this resiliency and this plan. And this is, for me, the priorities in terms of education that we want to push.
Thank you, Roberto. I think the last one to answer the question from Mas Krishna, ya? Mas Krishna, ITB, the effective ways to critically in the implement of energy transition. Professor Djoko, could you answer that?
Well, actually, what is the effective way if we want to work as soon as possible toward the energy transition? Of course, we have to start with about the awareness about that we have to make the all of our activity as well as our product is low carbon. That one, the first one. And then the second one, so we are aware here in Indonesia that mostly we are still working with the fossil energy. So in that case, we need to develop another energy sources. Besides that, also we try to apply any kind of technology that we make it via become the lower carbon society. And then of course beside that also we are talking about the education. So that one is very important, and we are happy to hear from Pak Anin that from the beginning of the our childhood already they are training about the knowledge how we could sustain in the future, especially in relation to the low carbon community. I think that one that we can do in here in Indonesia. Of course, it is different with what we have to do if, for instance, we are in Japan and so on in another country. So even they have the carbon emission higher compared to Indonesia, but they are already very developed, included also their technology. So they can apply what they call it, what we call it the carbon offset. So our center, for instance, so we are working mostly supported by the Japan economy actually. So they supported us year by year actually. And then they will promote that they make the lower carbon, even it is in Indonesia, something like that. So of course, if for us, it's a little bit different. But we have so many opportunity, for instance, in relation to we can become the hub of the CO2 lowering through the application of technology of the CCS, as well as also if we want to try to make the target on energy, so we can apply CCUS as well, using that method. Thank you, Bu Filda. I think that one for the addition.
Thank you, Professor Djoko. So coming to our closing, we would like to express again our gratitude to our panelists today. But before closing, I would like to reiterate what we have discussed today. So we see that the preparing human capital for energy transition is not simple. It needs a lot of collaboration between many actors. In here we have insights from Mr. Eric about the world right now that are preparing, actually not for Indonesia, on energy transition, and also Professor Djoko preparing the students with technology, with advanced technology, preparing them for the future, and also Mr. Eric implementing the workers and also the community local on this energy transition, and also Dr. Anindito about the curriculum and assessment itself in mitigating climate crisis. Actually, it also relate to the energy transition right now. So in here, again, human capital and workplace development are vital to make the energy transition successful. And these involvements around the government policy, investment, technological advancement, international commitments, and also education training is very important for us. So we really do hope that we have acknowledged lots of sharing in the session, and this will be also an input for our policy brief, hopefully to be finalized in the next few months, and we will give to the stakeholders and especially to the government of Indonesia and Ministry of Education here right now. So thank you for your participation. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Om Santi 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 Om. Over to you, Ms. Vivi.
Thank you so much, Ibu Filda, for moderating today's sessions, and also thank you so much for such a meaty and insightful discussion to all distinguished speakers. Now, we finally come to the end of the discussion sessions. Now, I would like to invite all the speakers and moderators to still remain on the stage for the delivery of the token of appreciations. First, Dr. Filda Yusgiantoro will give the token of appreciations to Mr. Eric Roeder. To the organizing committee, please help Ibu Filda to give the token of appreciations. Deliver the next token of appreciation to Dr. Anindito Aditomo. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, please give a round of applause to all distinguished speakers. Ibu Filda, please deliver the token of appreciations to Mr. Roberto Rossi. Last but not least, Ibu Filda, please deliver the token of appreciations to Professor Djoko Santoso. Photo sessions together. Probably I would like to invite all the speakers and Ibu Filda to take the photo together. For all the distinguished speakers, esteemed experts, for delivering such an fruitful discussions. And now we would like also to invite all the participants for the lunch together at the foyer. And there will be an announcement for all the winners of the competitions. And there will be a super exciting door prize for all of you guys from the committee after the lunch break. So stay tuned. But in addition to this event, in order to receive e-certificate, don't forget to complete the evaluation feedback form by scanning the barcode to the organizing committee. Please kindly show the barcode here. And then we will give you the certificate once you all done to fill out the form. And then there will be a closing ceremony after the lunch break and the announcements of the PYC competition winner. So again, please stay tuned. And thank you very much to participate in PYC International Energy Conference 2023. Thank you so much, and we wish you had a valuable time at our conference. Good day and enjoy the rest of your time here. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Om Santi 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 Om. Namo Buddhaya. Bye-bye.